All right, welcome to Franchise Time Machine. We're about to get started. Sounds like Ezra Denny's about to raid into us too, so we'll just wait on him and get started after that. All right, welcome Raiders. Ezra Denny, thank you so much for the raid. As always, I enjoyed watching your stream tonight as I was getting ready for mine. So, Ezra noticed before raiding in that the topic tonight is going to be home run allowed. And the reason it's 1922 is uh, that's the game environment for PTCS this weekend. And I've noticed that a lot of the streamers who are building their rosters are leaning pretty heavily into the lower home run rates in 1922. So using our completely average league, I wanted to give each team all their pitchers now. We can do the relievers this time too. Give all their pitchers different raw movement rates. Raw movement is the closest thing we have in the base game to the HRA or home run allowed in perfect team. So it's a 1 to 550 scale. 550 is kind of like a ridiculous number uh, as far as the scale goes. So to give you a sense of that, 2001 Barry Bonds, who hit 73 home runs, his power is I think around 520 that year, and his eye is about 530, and the scale goes up to 550. So its power, almost 5% above 73 home runs, and its eye about 5% above what his eye was that year. I think he walked close to, if not 200 times that year. So 550 is ridiculously high. So we'll take different cuts of HRA or raw movement between 1 and 550. We'll take four of them. And I'd like to do it twice, once in 2023 to get a sense, like in an environment we know that we're familiar with, just to see what that looks like. And then run it again, which is easy to do now thanks to the quick starts. Run again in 1922 and see if there's as much difference as people seem to think there will be as they prepare their PTCS rosters. So that's what I want to try to do tonight. And also, let me start off. I should have said this first thing. I apologize for missing my usual slot last night. If anyone was looking for some base game craziness, I apologize. Um, but we are back on track tonight, and I have a quiz or I guess a contest that we're going to do tonight. We're going to try to predict what's going to happen in this simulation. So let's go over to the base game. We are going to start with one of our quick starts, the new quick start game. I forget what iteration of average league 4x4 we're up to now. Is quick start 6 the most recent? Turn off sim interruptions and update. Yeah, I think this is the most recent. At some point, I'm going to clean up these file names so they're easy to find. And this will be first. We'll run it in 2023. Smiley face in. Yes, I forgot to mention that. Yes, I will be changing the ballparks to match the. Well, I think what I'm going to do is the ballpark factors that are listed in the tournament. So I think those are. Well, actually, I have it on another device here. Let me. Okay, so we have the multipliers, the home run multipliers, doubles and triples. Oh, that's for the era. Oh no, no, that's for polo grounds. Yeah, so I will apply those. I'll apply the ones that I can easily access from the tournament information. I'm not going to go into because I think I'd have to create a 1922 save to do that, and instead I'm just going to change the settings in the 2023 save uh, because of the quick start will make it everything go a little faster. So that's the closest I'll come to recreating the programs, but the intent is to get it as close as easily possible to that. That's a great question, Slash Facing. Thank you for reminding me. I might have actually forgotten to do that otherwise. So I've got those numbers up now on another screen so I can reference those. But we're going to call this Home Runs Allowed version 1 2023. Version 2 will be 1922. Um, I think what we'll do is we'll run it we'll do the changes pretty quickly, run it, and then we'll come up with the questions um, based on that 2023 sim, and everyone will have some idea of kind of what to expect at least for those four levels in 2023, and then it'll be okay. What is this going to look like in 1922? I'm also anticipating there'll be some surprises in that first sim that will inform kind of the questions we ask for the second sim. Um, yeah, sci-fi shit, I appreciate it. I mean, if you want to have them handy, that's great, but I think I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. Um, yeah, I may ask you for those, but if I can, I'm going to try to limit it to what's in the tournament information, just for the sake of simplicity. Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for offering that. Okay, so we are gonna not managing the teams. We are going to be in commissioner mode. Cannot be fired. For those of you who are seeing this for the first time, I've created a league where all the players are completely standardized, identical, and as close to league average as possible. So let's look at a picture. So we'll look at average starter one. Let's just make sure we're in the first team. Atlanta average Braves. Okay. Let's look at their first pitcher. Okay, the thing I wanted to make sure was as we change raw movement, does anything else change? It shouldn't be tied to anything, but I just want to make sure. Okay, stuff didn't change. P BABIP didn't change. Control didn't change. So that's good. So let me just change these back for now. Okay. Now, what did change, you might have seen some stuff changing here. That's just the expected results from a pitcher with these settings. So that movement was expected. So that's fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and rename our teams real quick. So it's raw movement, not HRA. So we'll call it raw movement. So I've been thinking about this. Normally, our philosophy is if we're going to max it out, we max it out, we go to 550. And if we're going to take it down, we take it down to one. I think we can still do that because then we have two teams in between. Um, And the only question is what do we set them to? I mean, part of me is tempted to set one of them at 400 or actually 425, which was closer to the major league average for raw movement. I think it must have been 2023. But then what happens then is because we only have four teams, do we then divide the top? Well, actually, that's not too bad. 425. Because we could go one. Oh, Cheeky. Welcome. Thank you for the raid. Raiders, here's what we are working on. I hope you had a good stream. I assume you were working on your PTCS rosters. Hope that went well. We are testing to see how much home run allowed matters in 1922. Um, it's I've heard it mentioned quite a bit during the run up to PTCS. The run environment being 1922, the home run rate being very low compared to current era. And I know, I think there have been varying degrees of how hard people are leaning into that. And so, Cheeky, if you were working on rosters, I don't know how much you were um, leaning on that lower home run environment too. But I wanted to get a sense of like how true that actually is by testing a few different. In the base game, it's raw movement instead of HRA. Four different levels of HRA, running those teams in 2023, and then doing it in 1922. And I think even just doing it in 2023 might be surprising
Why do you
what the
keep
results are.
following me around?
And then taking it back to 1922. C. Evans says, went with guys that don't give up home runs and hitters who hit home runs. Yeah, see, because I think most people are going the hard in the other direction. Some harder than others in kind of ignoring HRA. Tactile Next, thank you for the follow, appreciate it. But I you know I just wanted to see how how much that actually holds true. So that's what we're doing right now. We have a completely average league where all the players are completely as close to league average as possible and all identical. And now we're going to play around with just their HRAs to see what happens. So I think we'll do raw movement. There'll be a team where the raw movement's one. CF is hopes they're right because they just spent 2 hours on their roster. Um, even okay, let's do this. Let's make it. Sorry, Face Jane. I did. I have 7 entries in 4 categories. I have 2 in iron, 2 in bronze, 2 in silver, and 1 in weekly. Not weekly draft, just weekly. And I think it's like an open, so I'm gonna get crushed in that. The other ones, I don't have enough combinators, but if I get lucky on the draws, maybe I can make it and get a few free cards. Um, but yeah, but it's been fun building this roster because I, I've been taking a similar approach, and it lets me play different cards. And I'm hoping some of those cards are cards that other teams haven't combinated yet because they don't really play in 2023, so or 2024, or whatever modern 2010, I guess, is modern. Um, so yeah, it's been fun building those rosters. So I'm still trying to think about I mean, we are going to have a 550 team. So if I make the gaps 150, what happens? We have 400, 250, and 100. Perfect. Let's start with 100. And then raw movement 250. And then raw movement 400. Oh, which is close to league average. And then raw movement 550. Oh, this is great. And so you might be thrown off if you haven't watched this before. Watch this is for why is in a scale from 1 to 550, why is 400 major league average? And the reason is because that entire scale is divided up to include Major League Baseball, minor leaguers, college players, and so on. And so the majors tends to kind of operate in the band between, I would say, 300 and 500. Above 500 is super rare, and I haven't seen many where they have more than one attribute rated below 300. Like you can have one thing below 300 and still be a major league player. I think for the most part, more than that, and you're probably stuck in the minors. So that's why 400 is around the league average for a lot of attributes. So this is great. I think normally we go 1 to 550, but I think 100 is bad enough. And I'm going to call them 10A. So the reason the abbreviation is important, and A is going to be for average league, N will be for neutral league. When we look at the league leaders, it only shows the abbreviation, and so this will make it easier for us to see who we're looking at. And then we're going to do the same thing for the NL, which is the neutral league. 10N. I could just do cap locks. I just realized. RM250, which is 25N. RM400. Face James said, I started in 1922 to see if pull grounds dimensions were the same in the game as in real life, and they're not. So I wouldn't bother with that. But I think they discovered why OTP nerfs Negro Leaguers when they're imported. Oh, I just assume they get nerfed because they're treated as minor leaguers. Because when you import minor league stats, they get nerfed too. But I'd be interested to hear what you discovered. Okay, so the reason we change these names up here first is so that when we make the changes, I can make sure I'm changing the right things to the right ratings. So now all I have to do is look up at the top, and I know this team, all the pitchers are going to have 100 movement. The Negro Leagues in the game are said as a AAA league, even though they're now recognized as. But yeah, that's what I assume. But thank you for confirming that, Smiley Face Jan. The reason I suspected that was I've also had to import minor leaguers before for some of the like the tribute streams we've done, like um, the Billy Bean tribute, the 14 former professional ball players who had been openly out as LGBTQ. Uh, Only three of them had played in the majors. So for the others, I had to import their minor league stats and then figure out some way to kind of make them competitive in the major leagues. And so I saw that very similar nerfing happen with those minor leaguers. And I was like, oh, this looks just like when we did Josh Gibson. So yeah. So thank you for confirming that though. I had strongly suspected it, but it's good to get some confirmation there. Okay, so this team now the potential shouldn't matter, but just in case, we're going to do the whole row and take it down to 100. And you can arrow down in editor and just go through every picture. If you haven't played an editor before, I highly recommend it. Even if you don't change anything, you'll get to see what's behind the ratings of the players in the game. And I feel like it gives you a better sense of how the game works. Um, for example, I think most people know that stuff is kind of a calculated attribute based on velocity, pitch selection, pitch ratings, and just seeing different pitchers and different combinations resulting in whatever stuff rating they have, I think is really helpful to understand how OOTP works. The other thing, which I think we have a better idea of, since apparently, and I'm pretty new to Perfect Team, but apparently they disaggregated contact. Oh, see, we're already done with this team. Perfect. This is going to go faster than I thought. So contact is calculated through BABIP and avoid K, right? Some combination of those two. And you can see that when you go into editor. Like we're editing pictures right now, but I can just show you even pictures have batting ratings in, right? So, oh yeah, I standardize even the pitcher's batting just in case. But this contact, you can see you can't enter in numbers, and that's because this is calculated from the values that are entered in for BABIP and avoid K. And so just kind of understanding how those things work. There's also some interesting things about how fielding works that I think are worth checking out in editor to better understand how fielding attributes lead to fielding attributes plus experience result in your fielding rating. And I think perfect team players kind of understand that because they may, train their players in new positions over time. And that's where like the experience comes in addition to the ratings they might have. Smiley Face Jane says power might have a slight impact on contact. Oh, so yeah, so we did show that. I think Smiley Face Jane, you're probably referring to like when we did the hitter attributes. We did show that increasing power will also increase your batting average. But my understanding is that those attributes they used to be linked, and now they're not. And so if your power goes up, your contact will not necessarily go up. But as we saw in our experiment, even if the attributes are not linked, the results are linked. And so I think before, from what I've heard from community members, is that before the ratings were actually linked. But now the ratings are disaggregated, but as you saw in our experiment, the outcomes are linked because adding power adds home runs, which are hits that are not part of the contact rating. And so your average will be higher than what your contact would normally allow if you boost your power. So, but I was kind of surprised to hear that in the past the ratings were linked before too. But now the ratings are not linked, but the outcomes are still linked. I don't know if that makes sense. It makes sense in my brain, but I might not have explained it that well. Okay, this team is getting all 250 movement ratings. And we are, when we go to, actually, I guess we should go to Polo Grounds in 2023. Is that right? No, you know what? I want to leave 2023 as is because I just want everyone to kind of see, including myself, what these teams look like in the current modern Major League environment with modern and by modern stadiums, I mean a completely neutral modern stadium. The stadium factors for all the teams in this league are exactly one. Um, so yeah, I think we'll keep that part clean. Now that does mean we'll be changing multiple variables when we go to 1922, but I think that's okay because this isn't the scientific part is what's the impact of power in the tournament. right? That's kind of what I want to understand. And so shifting to 1922 and Polo Grounds at once, I'm okay with because that's what the tournament's defining. Um, and again, one of our guiding principle is we're okay with deviating a little bit from scientific method if it means either we think we can learn more or we can have more fun. And I think it's gonna be both because I'm trying to recreate PTCS. So my face James says makes sense. Probably been changed since I use Player Editor a lot. Yeah, and I use Player Editor going back a long time, but I never really took this like approach of trying to deconstruct it until this year. So even it has changed. Like my understanding of it in the past was just as a game player, not as someone who kind of tinkered with the game engine to try to figure out how it worked. In fact, the reason I have so many experiments I want to try is over the years I had lots of questions I could never quite figure out or get answered. The forums are great, and people will share with you their knowledge and experience. But the problem is, if you're trying to understand how the base game works, unless you're talking to a developer, everyone else is also just kind of guessing based on their outside in perspective. Uh, unless they have done experiments, and some people have, they do like hundreds or thousands of simulations, trying to figure this stuff out. And those perspectives I definitely value more than the people who are just like, oh, like I think it does X. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, unless you've talked to a developer or you've done experiments, then it's just really anecdotal. Um, and so part of what I'm trying to do is like get over that anecdotal hump without having to go through like 10,000 iterations. Okay, we're already to the 400 teams. I made a little typo there. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we have 6 starting pitchers getting these ratings. It's a 4-man rotation in uh, 2023. One of them is going to be in the bullpen and get that bullpen boost. Now, that's going to potentially be an even bigger problem when we go to 1922, where they're not going to need nearly as many pitchers. Claydox says one thing I've noticed from watching various streamers is that some info that a lot of people take for granted is just because one person one time thought it made sense in real life. Everyone else is like, oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Claydog. One of the experiments I'm planning to do on a daytime stream, probably next Friday, is to test out this notion that uh, if you have a higher ground ball percentage, you're going to give up fewer home runs and you have to have better infield defense. There's like a whole bunch of stuff I think that people assume about ground ball percentage that the way you just described, I don't necessarily think is baked into. It's not based on how the game engine works. I think it's based on how real baseball works, and then people assume that the game is going to then reflect that, which I don't think is a safe assumption because the game only works the way people program it to work. Um, just because it works in real baseball does not mean it's going to work in the base game unless someone has programmed it that way. Now, I mean, all credit to OOTP. They've done a great job of programming a lot of those things into the game, but that doesn't necessarily mean everything's programmed to be that way. And I made another typo. Let me let people know. All right, thanks for letting me know we're back from ads. Clay Dog, I was reading your comment while the ads were still running. I think that's a great example. So Clay Dog saying, example I always think of is I saw a couple of streamers say to turn down hold runner because you don't want to wear out your starting pitcher's arm. And I was like, there's no way any of them know that for a fact. Yeah, I think that's a great example. I think the ground ball one's a good example. I think um I heard a couple of conversations about um pull versus spray hitters in the polo grounds because of the weird shape of the park. And I think all those things make a big assumption that like real baseball um, physics and dynamics are all baked into the game, which might be true, but there's also only so many things they can bake into the game. And so to assume everything that's true in real baseball is going to then be true in the base game, and then by extension into perfect team, I think is potentially a big mistake. And so a lot of these things I test, it's not to kind of take shots at the base game. I think the base game is amazing. I think it's great. I mean, I've played it for over a decade because it's so fun and so well designed. But at the same time, it's like I want to understand how it works because then I can be better at playing it. And so, and a lot of that happens, Claro, that happens a lot in the forums too, where people like will they've built assumptions based on one thing they saw in the game or like one season that happened. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but that's anecdotal. And again, one of the things I freely admit is our experiments are very small sample sizes, but at least it's in a controlled environment, right? We have this experimental setup where everything is standardized and an average. And I think that's like multiple steps better than just drawing conclusions from one simulated season in the base game where you have hundreds of variables changing, right? Because you have all these players and you have RNG on top of that. We have RNG too, but we've tried to take out as much of the other stuff as we can. Um, Claydog says the tricky part is we all think of the game in real life terms to an extent, often when we shouldn't. Yeah, and that's definitely that happens more because the game is so good. So like again, I don't want anyone to think I do this to like try to pick apart and criticize OOTP. I think it's necessary because the game creates such an illusion of real baseball that you then have to like really search to find out like where does it depart from real baseball. So I face I wouldn't be surprised if there's something to the pull hitter thing for polo grounds, but I don't think there's any situation where I'm looking at two players and that's the deciding factor. Yeah, well, that's true too, right? Um, okay, sorry, where was I? Oh yeah, I'm editing these pictures. We're almost done. We're already at the 550s. And then I've got to figure out what the uh, what the pack giveaway questions are going to be. I think we can run the 2023 sim first and see how that goes. And then I think that'll give us a lot more interesting questions we can ask in the pack giveaway. I don't know what to call it. I want to call it a quiz, but the pack giveaway contest, I guess, is the right way to think of it. Now we'll quick save this before we change anything else because ideally I just want to open this back up as a new quick start and then change the year settings. And then we should be able to do that second sim right away. Okay, wow, these go so much faster because we're just changing one rating across the board. This is great. Flying Face Jane said, like, if two players have the exact same ratings and pull versus normal, then sure, go pull, but that's never going to happen. Exactly. Clay Doggo tried to test that out a little in EVCS tourney. Oh, that's a good idea. The whole pull spray hitters in the polo grounds, but it's hard to keep track of when you're tracked. Yeah. Now, I do think there's ways to do it where you can probably, um, I mean, someone smarter than me in database stuff and analytics could probably do this, but uh, to tie tournament results to card ratings and specifically those pull and spray ratings to then do like a multivariate regression to say, oh, okay, like pull versus spray has this much of an impact on outcomes, and that factor is greater in the polo grounds than in other stadiums. Like I think that could probably be done, but that's a data analytics exercise that like I'm not equipped to do. Um, I think that was the last team. Okay, I think we're already ready to go. Let me just make sure. This is version 6 of the quick start, so I think everything is at this point ready to go. Okay, you know what? I did the quick start to fix this. I wonder if this is something that cannot be saved in the quick start because it keeps reverting back to this. Even in the notes of the quick start, the reason I knew it was the most recent version was because it said we had fixed the mailbox and do not disturb settings. But Clayton's going back to school for IT. Little did you know that it was all Excel and perfect. Slyface James about to test if pickoff attempts have any effect on stamina. That is awesome. Yeah, there's so much of that um, floating around. I think part of it is people, like Clay Dog was saying, is like kind of attaching real life baseball truisms to okay, then it must be true in OOTP. I also think there's a lot of, and this happens in real life too, taking like an experience and extrapolating that to be something that's true across the game. Like, I don't doubt that that happened to you, but that also doesn't necessarily mean that that's how the game works. I remember like, so I had a concentration in decision sciences when I went to business school, and we used to talk about that as the I met Ted Bundy and he didn't murder me effect. Like, okay, that's great. He didn't murder you. That does not mean he's not a murderer. So, like that X happened to you in the game you played. That doesn't necessarily mean X is how the game works. Like it happened that one time. Even if it happened multiple times, that doesn't necessarily mean like that's how the game's designed to work. And frankly, like the things we're finding out may not be how the game's working out either. But I would say we have a better chance of getting to that insight because we've been diligent about setting up these experiments in a way that at least try to take away as many other confounding variables as possible. Uh, but it's not always possible. But we do our best. Okay, let's say this is a quick start. Oh, Plato wants to rename an experimental team. Good timing too, because it'll go into the quick start. Okay, what do you want to change? Let's go back to the okay, so I think we can't change the name and city and we can't change the abbreviation, but the ones in between, the nickname is fair game. Oh, you want to rename the save? Yeah, the intent of the redemption was you can rename the teams. Oh, is the name that should be roster Adam Dunn isn't okay. Uh Yeah, let's do that. We'll save the game. We'll save the. Let me do this. I'm gonna save the quick start. Actually, no. Let's save the quick start as yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You know what? It may not give us enough letters. Let's see how far it lets us go. Should we roster Adam? Yeah. How about can we just call it roster Adam Dunn? Will it let us do a question mark? Oh, we'll let us do a question mark. How's that? Is that all right with you? Roster Adam Dunn question mark. All right. Okay, this is now the game description is each team has pitchers with the same raw movement rating 100, 250, 400 MLB average, 550 max. Okay. Roster Adam Dunn question mark V1. And then when we do 1922, it will be V2. Smiley Jane says could have done it for longer to be. Oh, pickoff attempts have no impact on stamina. You know what it's like? It's almost like I mean, this is not all we do on the stream, but some of what we do on the stream is kind of like OOTP Mythbusters, right? Like I used to love that show Mythbusters, where they take something from movies or TV shows and show whether like it could actually be done or not be done. I feel like that's kind of what we're doing here. It's like I'll hear something or someone, saying, "Oh, this is how this works," and I don't mean to throw shade at that person. I just hear that and I'm like, "Is that actually true?" And then the next question is like, can we then show it's true or not true? Um, all right, let's save this. Oh, you know what? I don't think it likes a question mark. Let me see if I take away the question mark. Okay, it didn't like the question mark. Sorry, Claydog. Uh, oh, Mythbusters filmed in Alameda. Is that where they blow all this stuff up? Uh, Claydog, while we're at it, do you want to rename any of these teams? You can let me know. Um, I think we're ready to go though. Okay, let's make sure. Oh, the one thing I want to make sure is that the modifiers are turned off. They had their offices in your old Navy base warehouse. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, we almost forgot to click this lock league stats because we don't want it to recalc this. We want this locked at 1. So, for those of you who have not seen us do this before, if we don't turn off, and by turning off, by setting to 1 these modifiers, by setting this to 1, it means whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Because if you don't do that, the AI is going to try to make everything happen from a totals perspective, like what happened in 2023. So, for example, we have a bunch of pitchers with really low HRA. If that's going to lead to a bunch of home runs, if we don't set these modifiers to 1, the games will say, oh, you're going to hit too many home runs, so we're going to put a modifier on to reduce the number of home runs. And that defeats the purpose of our experiment. So we're going to turn the modifiers off by setting them to 1 and saying leave them at 1. The other thing is you have to make sure this is unchecked. Use auto calculate modifiers. If that's checked, it'll then go back and recalculate these, which again defeats the purpose. AW, we're trying to figure out how much impact different levels of HRA or in the base game Raw Movement has, first in 2023, but more importantly in 1922 in the Polo Grounds where PTCS is happening. All right, so I think we're ready to sim. The um, the 10-pack giveaway questions are going to be for the 1922 sim. So we're all going to watch the 2023. We're all going to learn from it, and then we'll draft the questions based on that. So we did save a quick
Why do
start,
you
right?
keep
Oh yeah,
following
that's
me
right. But we
around?
named it roster Adam Dunn. Clay Dog with the renaming experiment redemption. I love the name. Pitch Clock, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. All right, let's do it. I did think about having the first part of the contest be this 2023 save, but I didn't want anyone to be eliminated before we even get to the 1922 save. So that's the reason why I haven't included that as part of it. I want everyone to make it to the 1922 save. Now, in the past, and I'll talk about Wallet Sims. In the past, the contest would have been based on which team's going to finish first, which team's going to finish last. Um, but the problem with that is we found that in this season format, there's so many other variables besides just the pitchers or the hitters that you could sometimes find like confounding results. And it wasn't until we looked at the actual pitching stats where we saw what we expected to see. So now we look at the team stats and not just the team standings. Okay, but this one's going, I think, exactly as you would expect, right? The 550 average raw movement teams are in first place, and the order is descending. Now, one reason that's going to happen more clearly here is because now we've also included the relief pitchers in the change. In the past, a lot of our experiments, especially with like pitch selection, right? The bullpen has two pitches. The starters are the ones where you can play with the pitch repertoire. So because of that, we made a bunch of changes to starting pitchers, but all the teams are turning the game over to their completely average bullpens. And I think that was disguising a lot of what was happening. So we don't have as much of that issue here because even the relief pitchers had their raw movement changed. Okay, pretty quickly, the 550 teams are distancing themselves from the major league average 400 teams, and the 100 and 250 teams are dropping to the bottom. Now, one interesting thing is in the AL, the 100 team is managing to stay ahead of the 250 team by one game so far. And that's a perfect example of how, um, the RNG and just the natural variance can cause stuff like that to happen. Okay, let's just see. I'm kind of curious. Other than the one required player, if any players from the non 550 teams are making the All Star game here. So we'll sim to the All Star game. And then let's look at our mail to see who made the All Star team or who's leading in votes. Primarily look at average infielder 4. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone's the fan favorite, average infielder 4. Starting pitchers. Well, this is interesting. They're not all from Team 550. In fact, one is from Team 250. Who is this guy from Team 250? 113 and a third innings pitched, 103 strikeouts, 4.76 ERA, 2-8 record. somehow made it onto the top five of the All Star votes. Now I have popularity turned off, so all these players are supposedly getting their votes based on their performance. Let's see if that happened in the NL too. Let's see. There's our boy, average infielder four. Oh, our RM is raw movement. There is no HRA attribute in the base game, but it's raw movement. Again, we have two 100 players here getting votes. This guy has got a 7-10 record and a 5.04 ERA, and this 100 player has a 7-10 record and a 4.92 ERA. Now, assuming most of the at least most of the manager selections are from the 550 team or the 400 team. I am going to screenshot these. I just try to keep records of the Sims in case we ever want to go back and, especially some of these All Star selections. I do want to check these out outside of the stream. So this will be HRA. Okay, so let me first get the AL voting. Copy that. Paste it in, and then NL voting. And then these are the selections. I'm keeping this screen up too because I know you all sometimes see stuff that I don't see when I leave this stuff up. So even the fan voting, like this is the one that led in fan voting. 10-2, 2.80 ERA, 1.16. I think one of the complaints about the AI is that it overvalues wins, overvalues ERA, kind of like an 80s uh, baseball beat writer who gets all-star votes and MVP votes, right? Or in Cy Young votes. But there's a player here with a better win total and a better ERA that did not win the votes. There's another one with a better win total, slightly worse ERA. Right, this one here on the 400 team has a 10-2 record, same record, better ERA, better WHIP, but did not get more votes. So I'd be really interested to understand how that All-Star vote engine works. Okay, this has nothing to do with our experiment, but I always like to just watch the home run derby. So now, one thing you could say is um, teams from the 100 raw movement team should be less represented here because their pitchers are the worst. So other teams should be getting more home runs, not the players on the 100 team. But there is a 100 team player represented here, so good for him. But as expected, it's the teams with the better home run suppression that are on here because they are facing the worst pitchers. Like it works in reverse. You kind of have to like reverse think about it. Not watching the derby until average infielder four gets his credit. Oh, there is no. It's average infielder one. Three of them in the round of four, the semifinal. I don't like this new world order where average infielder four is shut out, and there's three average infielder ones in the semifinals. Average infielder one versus average infielder two in the final. And average infielder one takes it 11-7. All right, we'll quick sim the All Star game and then we'll do the rest of the season. Quick play. Average catcher won the MVP. Interesting. 7-2 win by the National League. Let's see how the pitchers did. In this league, yeah, everything's standardized, including ground ball percentage. I think I standardized it at 54%. See, another reason we have to change the team abbreviation is when we do the hover here, the only way to tell what team they're on is that 55N. So that's a 550 team player. That's a 550 team player. Here's a 10 player. 40, 40. Well, who got rocked? This guy got rocked. He's on team 40 or 400. This guy gave up some. He's on team 55 or 550. 550. 550. Yeah. So it's not like the ones who snuck in are the ones getting rocked. The 550s are getting rocked here too. Here's a 40 that gave up a maybe a home run. Okay, interesting. Let's go back to the standings and let's sim out the rest of the season. And then we'll get ready for 1922 and we'll standardize the stadiums around the tournament settings. And we'll get we'll do the quiz. I'll write the questions for the quiz and send that out for you guys to fill out. 10-pack giveaway. We're doing 7 packs for first place, 3 packs for second place. Okay, the teams are now in order, as we would have expected. Okay, and both leagues are actually mirroring each other pretty nicely, which we don't always get. There's a huge gap, 27, 28 game gap between first and second place. And then another big gap between second and third place. But third and fourth are kind of close together. Right, and I think we've seen this. We've seen that like the incremental value of an additional point on your rating does seem to get more important the further you go up the scale. All right, we are almost at the end of the regular season. Okay, we have 1 game left to go. ERA crown. This has to be from a 550 team, right? Okay, so in the AL, it's chalk, right? 550, 400, 250, 100. In the NL, also chalk, 550, 400, 250, 100. Oh yeah, AW. I think you might have joined after I mentioned it, but I am doing one of the things that actually I've heard recently is a lot of people talking about if you have a higher ground ball percentage, you give up fewer home runs. And I don't necessarily think that's true, but we can find out. So we're going to test different ground ball percentages. I'm planning to do it on a daytime stream next week. Oh, interesting. HRA is raw movement plus ground ball percentage. Okay, that would explain why then um, it didn't. Nothing else moved because the ground ball percentage was fixed here. So Yeah, so yeah, we'll see. I'm thinking next Friday is when I'll do it because it's a quick experiment that I can do in that 2 hour window I get on Fridays. And I think it's a topic people would be interested in because I think all of us have heard people say variations of, you know, if you're in a if you're in a home run park, make sure you have ground ball pitchers, um, or you can get away with fly ball pitchers if you're in dead ball, right? All these things that like we hear that make sense if you're talking about regular baseball, but only makes sense in OTP if that's how it's programmed. Sniper Jane believes it's 100% true and would be very surprised to find out if it weren't. It would be an earth shattering revelation. Well, here's the reason why I think it's possible it could be true. And it's the what we learned about the third or fourth pitch in the pitcher's repertoire. And if that pitch sucks, right? If that pitch sucks, it doesn't count for the purposes of the game engine calculating whether you make an out or not. But it definitely counted in the game engine's calculation whether you strike out or not. And that's completely artificial, right? Real baseball doesn't work that way. And so, and again, I'm not criticizing the game. Like, you have to make simplifying assumptions to make a game this complicated work. But because that exists, I believe it could exist that the ground ball percentage is not tied at all. But, like, let's find out. Like, we have the ability to find out. So let's find out. If y'all can wait till next Friday, we can all find out together. Um, Seems to be 2.5 or so per ground ball percentage on HR rating. Yeah, and if it's calculated that way, then that's great because then we'll know and it will be clear that the game does work that way. Um, I just all I've know is that I've heard about it, but no one's been able to point to data to show that like this is true. Um, but this goes back to what Clay was saying. They talk about it as if it's real baseball, and it makes tons of sense in real baseball. And so I think people just assume it will make sense in OTP, but it will only make sense in OTP if it's programmed that way. And it sounds like AW is saying if it is probably calculated that way, which is great. Um, if anything, like if we show that, then it's a feather in the cap of OTP to say they anticipated that or they had that insight that this happens in real baseball, so let's program it in the game. But again, those things that happen in real baseball only make it into the game if the developers know enough and think enough to include it. So let's find out. I think that'll be a super fun one to do. I'm doing an experiment that anyway it saves it saves Smiley Face Jane 30,000 channel points. Oh, speaking of, I posted in the Discord, but I know not everyone's in the Discord. I'm thinking about doing an experiment that I might turn into a community competition. So I want to create a team that all 26 players are from the player creation engine. And I'm going to give myself X number of legends, however many stars, and so on of the 26 man roster. And I get to pick which position gets what rating, right? But I don't get to pick, like, the computer is going to generate the players and just see how I do in a major league season. But then I thought I can make a team, and then like AW can make a team that same way, and Smiley Face Jane can make a team that same way, and we can compete against each other. Um, the only control we'll have is like what position we generate with each of those ratings. But like once the teams are made, we're going to let the AI run the show, and we can just see how it happens. AW doesn't need to lose to Smiley Face Jane in more places. Yeah, AW. I think those ground ball ranges that you're citing, 64 4% plus means extreme ground ball, etc. Um, I think that's 100% true. but no one's been able to show me that like if you're extreme ground ball, you also give up fewer home runs. I I know that's how real baseball works, and I would like to believe OOTP has programmed it to work that way in the game too, but I don't know. Like I haven't seen data that shows me it does work. Well, if HRA does go up, then yeah, then I believe it. But still, no one's shown me that, right? They've said it. They've said that's what happens. But again, like it goes back to what Clay Dog was saying: is are they saying that because that's how real baseball works, or because they know? And like, and but AW, like you know how the base game works, and you know a lot of what's inside the engine. So I believe you if you're saying that the HRA number actually does go up. But I think it would be compelling for people to see it in action in an experiment to say, okay, that's something where the game does mimic real life baseball. All right, let's look at these stats. This is interesting. League wide, the home runs are up, and I think that's because two of the teams have raw movement below major league average, and so they're just giving up so many home runs that the 550 team can't keep up by countering it enough. But let's look at the pitching leaders. You'd expect most of the leaders to come from the 55 teams for most stats. Yeah, most of the win leaders. So this might be one of the questions. How many of the league leaders in wins will come from the 550 team, right? Or but ERA, this is interesting. ERA, there are two 400 team players that snuck in there. Okay, and then look at strikeouts, right? 550, 550, 400, 250. There's a 250. There's two 250 players on that list. Now, I bet these, the ones leading in strikeouts right now, I bet these are going to be bullpen pitchers. Let's see if they are. No, he's a starter. It proves me wrong. I thought he was taking advantage of the bullpen stuff boost, but no. 33 games started. And he is through 191 strikeouts for fourth in the league. Interesting. I mean, I guess that makes sense though, right? Um, I mean, the only reason HI would reduce your number of strikeouts is if you get chased from games sooner because you're getting rocked. So you don't get as many chances to strike out people, but your stuff is the same as everybody else. So I guess that makes sense. AW thinks that the best test would be to lower raw movement to make HRA match, but have the different fly ball, ground ball tendencies. Hmm. Yeah. In a way, you'd be like kind of disaggregating the two things, right? So you'd be making it more of a pure ground ball percentage test. I think that's a second experiment. The first experiment is to show people, yes, these two things are linked because the developers are smart enough to say, okay, these two things need to be linked. But then I think what you're saying then is another experiment beyond that to say, okay, what happens if we then disaggregate the two? Um, but let's look at the team stats. I think this is where we're really going to see the data changing as you go up or down the list, right? And so this is nice because the standings worked out nicely, so they're all in order. So runs, like they increase as you go down the list, but look at the way they increase, right? From 550 to 400, that's a 183 increase. But then from 400 to 250, that's almost over a 300 increase. But then from 250 to 100, you're only increasing by 74. So big gap is from 250 to 400, right? Each gap is 150, but that 250 to 400 gap is huge. Edo says because ground ball percentage up means HRA goes up, so it should work. But if a pitcher is a ground ball pitcher, but the movement is the same, does that matter? Yes, and everyone will have the same movement unless we change it because everyone in this league is exactly the same. Yeah, except we'll do four because we only have four teams. Our choices are four teams or eight teams. We also ran into, I don't know if you were watching that night, but we tried to do a three-team league and the schedule doesn't work. You can't fit 162 games for all three teams because there are literally not enough days in the year for everyone to play. So we're going to stick with even numbers. That's the only difference from what you said. So let's see what else is changing as you go. You were there? Because sometimes we see weird things that you don't think should be connected changing. Like, uh, so of course the home runs fall. Look at the huge. Okay, this is interesting. The home run difference is 10x from 400 to 550, and it's about 2x, right, from 400 to 250. And it's about, I mean, it's barely different from 250 to 100. CF is asking, did the batters with power play the team with the pitchers with the high by MVGB movement? So the only players in this team where everyone was average, the only players that have changed are the pitchers, and only their movement numbers have changed. So no one in the league has more power than anyone else. They all have 400 power. But what happens is if you're on the team with the good pitchers, you're only facing worse pitchers. So you're going to hit better. So it's going to look like you have more power. AW proud of RM 250 in the AL. Same amount of saves as RM 400 with 27 less wins. The same thing happened though at the bottom of the NL. 34 saves each. Oh, but their loss totals are similar. So you're right. You're right. The 400 and 250 save total in the AL is more amazing. I agree. But look at the same pattern holds true in the NL with the home run total. It goes from 18 to 186, 10x, and then about double from 400 to 250. Right? Again, this goes back to the whole thing around adding points to your rating above 400 is way more impactful than adding points to your rating below 400. And I know it's not linear. So it's like going from 400 to 550, you'd probably see the same phenomenon. It's not going to be the same as going from 500 to 550. 550 is too broken. Yeah, that could be it too. But again, like strikeouts, walks, all of those are noise because we haven't changed that rating at all. Which is great because that shows that these one of the things we're learning or I guess reinforcing is that the ratings are very decoupled from each other. Right? So even if movement goes up to 550, God level movement, your walks and strikeouts are still saying in the same band as everybody else. Now, this is interesting and might have some clues as to what we're going to see next week, but the ground out percentage, right, does, I mean, it's small differences. It might be noise, but the two that are below 50% are the high movement pitchers, and the ones above 50% are the but then the NL data kind of refutes that. So that might just be noise. I might just be seeing patterns where I think they should see a pattern. Right, and if you look at the batting averages, this reinforces what we saw when we were testing batting ratings, that when your power goes up, your average goes up too, because each home run that your ratings aren't expecting is an extra base hit that your ratings aren't expecting, right? So uh, the average is going up because the home runs are going up. Like, you know what I'm going to do offline? I'm going to take these hits allowed numbers and subtract out the home runs, and I bet the base number of hits allowed is going to be similar. Right. This is what's interesting is that 400 on a 1 to 100 scale is a 50 rating. 550 is a 125 rating. So I think, but I think part of that isn't that because the Major League Baseball banned, at least from what I've seen from 2023 ratings, is that Major League Baseball kind of occupies the roughly like 300 to 500 zone. Right, so we're artificially creating players that are way worse than Major League quality with this 100 team, and probably still way worse than Major League quality with a 250 team. Okay, so wanted to get us kind of grounded in this before we throw it to 1922. So between this and the standings, no, this is still 2023, and this is still completely average ballparks where all the ballpark factors are one. So the giveaway, the 10 pack giveaway, is going to be based on 1922. So I'll show you what I'm working on here. This is the form. Let me share it. Okay, so tonight's experiment we will test for the relative impact of raw movement in 1922 with ballpark factors taken from the PTCS. Um, Photographs. We will start by simulating in 2023 to get HRA, or sorry, raw movement 100, 250, 400 ML, close to MLB average, and 550. Uh, Translated to 2023 MLB season stats. We will then move the entire experiment to 1922 and the Polo Grounds. Okay, experimental details, standard 2023 slash 1922 season simulation, modifier set to 1, no injuries, no suspensions, personality, chemistry, morale, development, off, no historical trades, no trades. AL will be in charge of all decisions once the season starts. I think the other thing is we're not going to change the rosters despite the era change. We're going to send the same 22 players back in time. Despite rosters will not be changed despite different pitching needs in 1922. Yeah, AW. I'm with this. It's gonna we're gonna go back to the quick start and start a new simulation. So I'll save this. We can always come back to it. We can always come back to these stats. And then the quick start's going to start a different 2023 simulation that we're going to right away change to 1922. So we'll have both simulations available to go back into. But thanks for bringing that up. It's always good to make sure that's happening. Okay, as always, please remember that the giveaway uh, OOTP login is case sensitive. Your Twitch username is not, and the Twitch username is the one we'll show when we're comparing guesses. Okay, so the first question, let me go back. What's a good first question here? So I don't necessarily want to go by standings, right? We talked about the problems we have with standings. So let's go back to the stats. Okay. How many of well, actually, let's do something HRA specific. Oh, 58. This is interesting. The 58 home runs allowed by the worst HRA pitcher in the league was from a 250 team, not a 100 team. Okay, so that's a good first question. Um, the league leader in home runs allowed will pitch for which team? And the choices will be 100, 250, 400, 550. Okay, that's a good first question. Then the next question will be if it's a 551, I'll eat my shorts. um, don't be too sure about that. Who was it? There was someone who said, someone like, I think like a either like a columnist or big uh, YouTuber or Twitter person said that if which game was it? Was it if Boston College beat FSU, they would eat dog crap from a cup, and then BC beat FSU. I think that was the game they were talking about. We'll have to set up a special AW shorts eating stream. Okay, let's ask the flip side of that, which is which team at this point we're tie. This is survivor style, so this is now already a tiebreaker. The league leader in ERA will pitch for which team? Oh, wait, I should just copy this question. Duh. Let's do that. Average catcher 4 showing in shutouts. Does that mean he pitched? Well, that's interesting. Let's see. Well, it's with 0, so I wonder if that means he pitched like mop up duty, but then he's listed as a pitcher, and then all pitchers are tied with 0. Yeah, he pitched one game in relief, 2 innings, 2 earned runs. But because he's a pitcher, yeah, I'll probably alphabetical. That's right, because his average catcher. That is a funny catch, though, smiley face Jane. That's awesome. That is funny. I didn't even notice that. um, let's see what else. I'm trying to figure out. Can we see? Is there a way to see all the? Oh, is it under sortable stats? If we look up home runs allowed, oh, oh, that's hits allowed. I was like, what? Okay, here's the question then: Is how far down this list of home runs allowed do we have to go before we get to a team 550? Not filter. Oh yeah, I want to edit the view, right? Edit views. Oh, can I not add something to this? I want to add team, otherwise I have to hover. Yeah, that's what I thought. Customize. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Um, team short. Oh, perfect. So how far down this list do we have to go before we get to, man, even a 40 team? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. That's 24. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So it's 30. That will be an interesting tiebreaker, though. Tiebreaker number 2. We put leader in quotation marks, so that's a dubious distinction. How many pitchers down the HRA leader list is the first team 400 pitcher? It was number 30 in 2023. Right, so we'll give everyone that information. And then in case we need it, I don't want to have to count that high. I don't want to ask about the. Here's tiebreaker number 3. How many pitchers in the top? Oh, we'll do top 7 because that's what's on the stats page. Okay, and then the final tiebreaker, tiebreaker number 4. How many HRA surrendered by the leader in HRA? That'll be short answer. Okay, by then we should have a tiebreaker. And then if not, again, in case something crazy happens, like last time, Kitty Poo Poo and Smiley Face Jane guessing the exact same. What was it? It wasn't whip. Oh, it was whip. Exact answering the exact same whip. Hopefully by this we'll have the tie broken. But if not, I'm going to use EVC's method of first person to respond is the final tiebreaker. All right, so let me save this and let me get a link for you guys. I'll post it in the chat and you can start thinking about this. Link to form for tonight's 10-pack giveaway. All right. And you have plenty of time to fill that out because I have to set up the next sim. Oh, let me turn on the form, which I always forget to do. All right, so let's save this. Oh, you know what? Let's see who won the Cy Young Award. Oh, we haven't even seen the World Series. Now, this is where small sample size can come up and bite the 550 teams in the butt here. Okay, the one 550 team swept. The other had to go to 6 games to win, but we do have two 550 teams in the World Series. Doesn't always work out this way, but I think it goes to show the dominance of the 550 teams. That it is quite a long tail to get up to that 550. I mean, the easiest way to say it is the jump from 250 to 400 is nothing compared to the jump from 400 to 550. And it kind of makes sense, right? You're going from below average to average, and you're going from average to God mode. So, I mean, but not every game is programmed to play out that way. But clearly, OOTP is, at least in regards to these pitching ratings. Also, by the way, if you're in the chat right now, you can fill out the form and take off. You do not have to be present to win. I will still get you your packs. That's why I asked for your OOTP username in the form. So feel free to enter and run. All right, so the neutral, no, the average league. Uh, oh no, the neutral league because it's the Nationals. They win the World Series. Let's get a screenshot of this. And to AW's point, let me make sure I get the standings and the stats. Just in case I lose the save. I don't intend to, but you never know. There's 2 pages of these stats we need. The more interesting stuff for us is on the second page here. And then these team stats were amazing. How cleanly and non-linearly they played out. I mean, the home run totals show more clearly than anything else that um, there's a big taper in how the performance increases. In fact, in the National League, the 250 team gave up more home runs than the 100 team. Yeah, AW has 2 PTS rosters to make, so I still have 5. I made 2 already. I made my 2 bronzes. I still have 5 more to go. That weekly one's going to be comical because I think it's open and I just don't have the cards for it. So it'll be a lot of gold and low diamond probably. All right, let me save this. All right, and then hold on. Sorry, I'm looking for something real quick here. All right, sorry about that. All right, so I think we can just right. Hold on. I'm just going to make sure this is saved. Okay, we'll go back out to the start because this going out to the start screen will also do an auto save. So okay, now we can start a new game using the quick start that we created. Now this is a specific 4x4 quick start for this pitching experiment. That is that Clay Dog named "Should We Roster Adam Dunn?" So now we're gonna call this HRA. Wait, what did I call the? Hold on, let me. Oh, I bet. What's the easiest way to find out? Um, I bet if I load a game. Oh, I called it HRA V1. This is HRA V2. Okay, let's go back to that. Should we roster Adam Dunn? Quick start. It's in the library now. Clay Doctor, you're still here. It's in the library forever. Okay, but the name of this game will be HRA VO2. This is in 1922. And I appreciate using your channel points. I don't know what that does, but apparently it's an important thing. So I appreciate you using your channel points. Okay, so everything's ready to go except apparently this keeps changing. See, it's reverting back. It keeps reverting back, even though we saved it. But the main thing we need to do is we need to change the year settings and the stadium settings. All right, so league settings. Okay, historical year 1922. Which settings to import? 1922. And totals from the year 1922. But we're not going to run, but we want the modifiers to stay the same. So really we're relying on what happens over here because we still don't want the we still don't want the totals effect here. So but all this stuff. Wait, how come this is it really 5-man rotation in 1922? That's interesting because that slide everyone uses says 3 and 5 relievers. This has a 5-man rotation and 3 relievers. Oh, so my face changes, for some reason it won't change the rotation. What happens if we? Because I thought it worked when we went to 1900. Okay, 1900 works. I mean, for some reason, is 1922 actually set to 5-man rotation? Let's try 1919. 5-man rotation. How far do we have to go back? 1911? Okay, 1911 goes to 4-man. So it doesn't seem like it's a bug. It just seems like there's a disconnect between what OOTP has set as the default rotation size in 1920, 1922, and what the conventional wisdom is on that slide. But I did say we're going to go with whatever the AI sets up. So the game says 5-man rotation. That's what we're going to go with. Yeah, the AW. The one thing I have saving me is 4 of my remaining rosters are duplicates. So I have 2 silvers and 2 irons. Now I don't have the exact same card set, but they're close enough that I'm really only have 3 more rosters to make. But still, it's a lot of roster making and not a lot of time. Okay, the other thing we need to change is the stadium settings. Ballpark. Okay, I said I would just take the factors that are in the um, PTCS descriptors. So we're gonna stick with that, and I have that up on another screen here. So edit ballpark, average .952, .972, doubles, .872, triples, 1.096, home runs lefty, 1.201, 1.201. Okay. Oh, hit enter after editing. Oh, this is like the name field. Oh man, I have to hit enter every time. Okay. Now I know. That's a little annoying. Also annoying, it's not listed in the same order on the description as it is in here, so I'm having to bounce back or bounce back and forth. I wonder, can I just make everyone play in this ballpark? Because, well, the dimensions will be different. Shoot, I don't think I can. I'm gonna have to go through this annoying exercise for. Well, it's only 8 teams. That's not too bad. All right. Um, averages first. 0.952, 0.972, doubles, 0.872, triples, 1.096, and then 1.201. It is interesting. It's technically a home run hitter's park. Oh, thanks, Smiley Face. Yeah, it will be easier to have it in the same order. Thank you. That's a big help, actually. Oh, it's way easier. Thank you. All right. The Mets. This is actually first for me. I don't think I've actually edited ballpark factors before. Oh no, I had to. I had to make them all one. It's just that was so much easier because they're all being changed to one. Oh wait, I messed that one up. This is 0.872. That's 1.0. And then these are both 1.201. Giving you all plenty of time to get your forms in. It is interesting that some fields, like the name fields and these ballpark factor fields, you have to hit enter, and most others you don't. Okay, and then the two 1.201s. All right, we're up to the 550 ballparks already, I think. Not too bad. Just a little annoying, but not too bad. Wait, 95. Oops. 952. 972. 1872. 1.096. 1.201. 1.201. Okay, and then ballpark 0.952, 0.972, 0.872, 1.096, 1.201, 201. Okay. The only other thing I think we might want to do is go through each pitching staff and just have it set the staff, just in case anything changes. Okay, yeah, it totally changed the setup there. So this is pretty quick though. I don't mind doing this one. Wait, what happened there? That's interesting. That one team, of course, it was the Mets. The Mets did something weird. All the other teams did the same thing, except the Mets did something weird. Yeah, doesn't sound like the Mets. All right, well, I did say we'd let the AI run it, so let's save this game and let's create a new quick start. This will be roster Adam Dunn V2. 1922. Oh, and ballparks. Multipliers from PTCS. Okay. All right, let's do this. I need to take a quick break and I don't want the sim to get interrupted. So let me push some ads. It'll give you guys this is your last 3-minute warning for the survey. And when we come back, we'll look at the responses and we'll run the sim. All right, are we back from ads? I'm also going back. I missed some. I think I missed some chat while I was typing in those ballpark factors. No, not back from ads yet. Okay. Back from ads. Let me get caught up here. Uh, okay, so Smiley Face Jane took into consideration this uh, a home run hitters park. Didn't realize today the current ballparks the Reds have the highest home run factor. I did not realize that either. Was doing a save and tried to steal Juan Soto and they stole him and now he's going to MASH. Well, you can also, if you're in commissioner mode, you can always change their ballpark factor so he gets nerfed. All right, let's. I'm going to close the form unless anyone's working on it right this second. So if I don't hear back, I'll give it a few seconds for the lag. The Soto contract is 15 years. Wow. So I take it you're not running the Reds in that save? No. Well, that's probably the game's revenge for you signing all those minor league personnel to 20-year contracts. You took your hometown minor league team and put them in the. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. That's a fun save. Okay, I'm closing the form, everybody. All right, let me pull up a spreadsheet with the responses and I will hide the identifying info for the first round here. And then I'll just reveal the Twitch IDs when we go over the final responses. He only did the 20-year contract with their managers this time because their team was horrible. 36 and 126. Wow. Oh, with mostly minor leagues. Oh, so you're doing an actual save. Like you're doing it for real, like the hard way. All right, let's see what we have here. All right, league leader in home runs allowed will pitch for which team? Someone went bold and went with 550. The league leader in ERA. I thought someone might go 250 because we did have some 250s in there. The league leader in ERA will pitch for which team? All right, this is where we might break some ties here. We have a 400 and a 250 in there. How many pitchers down the HRA leader list for the first team 400 pitcher? I don't know what Yankees means. How many pitchers in the top 7 home runs allowed leaders will be from team 100? And then, so those answers range from 0 to 7. And then I'll keep the last one hidden, which is how many home runs allowed uh, by the league leader. with the most home runs allowed. So we'll keep that one hidden for now. All right. Well, let's sim it and see what happens. I am very curious to see if the spread is either tighter or wider than it was in 2023, both in the standings and in the stats. Like the team stats, like we saw how clear they were. I wonder if they'll be even more clear or more muddy in 1922. If it was Yankees somehow, I say they win the packs anyway. Automatic win. Automatic win if that stat is Yankees. All right. We get our little 2 game sample here every time we do. Oh, no, it's not 2023. Oh, but we are keeping the 2023 schedule apparently. Okay, so we will still get our little stub of a March here, a little sampler, a little appetizer, a little amuse bouche of what's to come. I think things are going to be tighter because there will be fewer home runs. Wow, look at this. Everyone's packed together. NL East, the top 3 teams are tied. In the AL, the top all 4 teams are separated by 2 games. Okay, we're now to June 1st, and there's still very little separation compared to the 2023 sim. So this does lend, you know, credence to the approach of when you're in a low ballpark era that HRA does not matter as much. A moose bouche makes you think of the ERB with Gordon Ramsay versus Julia Child. I haven't seen that. All right, let's go to the All-Star break like we did last time. All right, let's all right, quick look at the standings before we look at the All-Star teams here. Do I need to sim that last day too? I think I do. Okay, now we're at the All-Star break. In the AL, 550 just eking out a 1 game lead over 250. 400 is 4 games back. In the NL, the standings also not quite chalk. 500 and 400, 550 and 400 where you expect, but 100 and 250 are flipped, but only separated by 1 game. So the NL is acting much more like the 2023 sim did, but the AL is kind of all over the place right now. All right, let's check out the All-Star voting, particularly the pitchers. Yeah, you only have 2 550s, 2 400s, and a 250 in there. The pitcher from the 250 team, 7-10 with a 3.73 ERA, but we don't know what the ERA for that era is. 3.73 might be equivalent to 6 for all we know. Let me copy this and add it to the notepad. All right, let's look at the NL voting now for starting pitchers. Wow, a 250 leading the voting. Again, only 2 550s this time around, and a 100 in the running, too. That's true, Clay Dog. If we have learned to disregard who the AI picks for the All Star game, that is true. All right, here's the roster. Again, it's picking someone named starter, but they are in the bullpen because we do have six pitchers. And you know what? I wonder if they have changed their rotations now that the season has started. No, they still have five in the rotation. Interesting. Okay, let me copy this. While I copy and paste that, let me know if anyone sees anything interesting in the stats here. We do have a 25 selected to the team. Oh, interesting. It did select fewer pitchers to the All-Star game. At least it's doing that right. All right, let's watch the home run challenge. We do have an infielder four in the mix. Oh, upset by infielder one though, 13-12. Infielder one advances against infielder or outfielder four in the final. Outfielder four wins 11-10. Congratulations, average outfielder four. All right, let's go quick play the All Star game. 5-0. Four hitter for the AL, combined four hitter. Okay, this pitcher is the one that got rocked, gave up 3 runs in 1 inning. And it's from the 400 team. Can't really draw many conclusions from that, but interesting. This pitcher threw 3 innings for the save, scattering 3 hits, and they're from the 550 team. But again, these are super small sample sizes. So let's get back to the standings and sim the rest of the season. Okay. It's a short July because the All Star break was kind of in the middle of it. But um, the NL looking more like the 2023 sim, the AL super tight. Okay. Okay. Both leagues have at least finally got into the same order as the previous sim. And the NL leader has actually clinched a playoff spot. 91 games. Everyone else is in the 70s or below, just running away with it. All right, let's go to the end of the regular season and sim the last game. Okay, so the orders held true, but the gaps are very different. Right, you have a big 25 game gap from 550 to 400 in the NL. That's only 7 games in the AL, and in fact, 400 and 250 are tied. And in the AL, 100 is 18 games back. In the NL, Team 100 is 40 games back. So let's see how the stats hold up. Let's play at the postseason first, then we'll look at the stats. Let me save in case we have a crash. At least we have the data saved then, because the stats are baked at this point. Okay, again, like last time, 400 and 550 in the playoffs on both sides. And again, these are small sample size within a small sample size. So, whoa, both 400 teams advance. I have a feeling that's an indicator of an underlying uh change where it's just less important here. And the average Phillies sweep the average 400 Mariners. And again, it's not that it doesn't matter because the order was still the same. The 100 team was still 40 games back in one of the leagues. I just think it matters less. And where it mattered most in the last sim was 400 to 550. Maybe that gets nerfed. Wow, we are an OOTP god. All right, so let me get a screenshot of this, the championship, the playoffs, and then our standings. Quaid Hug Worship franchise. Screw that heretical Caldwell cult. All right, let's go to the stats. Should we? Let's look at the stats first. You know what? Let's skip. I'm not going to scroll down. Let's skip to the team stats and just take a look. Let's see what's going on here. Save totals are down, which is appropriate for the era. And we still have the same pattern. It's just lower numbers, right? It is. It's not quite 10x this time, but it's still almost 9x from home runs from 550 to 400, and then it is more than double, a little more than double from so that pattern's still holding true here. But I think because the numbers are smaller, right? Nine, it's still almost 10x, but from a number like uh the multipliers to say, but from a numbers perspective, you're only talking 70 more home runs, right? Versus like what was it, almost 200 more home runs last time. AL 250 had a bad time. Well, yeah, I mean the AL is the one that was tighter. Oh, most home runs allowed, yeah, yeah, more so than the 100 team. You're right. Wow, way more than the 100 team. That's really interesting. I mean, I guess it must be RNG. I mean, the NL is much more what we would expect. And this is an example of like, if we didn't all have a bunch of rosters to make tonight, I would say maybe we run it back. But um, so home runs are down. The multipliers are still there, but because the sheer numbers are lower, I do agree with what people are doing and saying that the home runs allowed is less important. But it's still a differentiator. I mean, of course, we're making huge jumps in raw movement, but um, 9 to 79 and 79 to 196, it's still 9x and 2x. But I guess when it just happens less frequently, it also probably matters less in games. Although if it mattered less in games, here's what I would have thought: if home run suppression is less important in 1922, I would have expected both sides to look more like the AL here, where everyone's crammed together closer because there's less differentiation. AW says, say you want like 70 plus HRA. Oh, on a perfect team card? Yeah, although I got the impression watching some of these streams that people were like saying like, "Oh, 50 HRA, 40 HRA, it's fine because of the era." But I think that might be overstating it because then you're getting into because then you're starting to get into the downside of this curve, right? Where you are approaching maybe an RM of 250. Okay. Most importantly, let's find out who wins some packs here. 40, 50 seems closer to 250 than 400 at that rate. Yes, I agree. I agree. A 40 to 50 HRA in perfect team, I do think you're approaching RM 250 in this experiment. I will say though, like the benefit of having an HRA of like 100 or 110 from a sheer numbers perspective, it depends on how you view it. If you view it as a multiplier, it's still 9x better, but it's also only 70 home runs different versus like it was 200 home runs different in 2023. So I think you can potentially argue that both ways. So I will say, like, I think the conclusion it matters, but it matters less. But you are walking a fine line the further you go below average because there is a cliff there. There is a big drop off where all of a sudden you're going to jump from, you're basically going to double your home runs, right? As you go from average to 250. I guess the difference is if you're going, if doubling your home runs means going from 10 home runs allowed to 20 home runs allowed, or going from 3 home runs allowed to 6 home runs allowed, if that's what the era is doing, then yeah, going from 3 to 6 hurts less for sure. So for reference, in base game on 1 to 100 rating scale, 250 is 29 and 400 is 50. Oh, is that right? I've been trying to get someone to give me a translation. I've been trying to get a translation of perfect team ratings to base game ratings, which is not quite what you're saying, AW, but the fact that you have any kind of translation is helpful. Claydog says these are against average players too, though, not teams full of combis with massive. Oh, that's a great point, Claydog. That is a great point. He sent this sheet to me a while back. Oh, I'll have to look for that again. I apologize if I missed that, or maybe I just forgot about it. Okay, let's get to some pack giveaways. Okay, so the first question was the league leader in home runs allowed pitch for which team? We haven't looked at that screen yet on purpose. All right, here we go. Wow, 18. I think in the other one it was 40, right? So definitely a big nerfing. But the batting averages are still robust. No, these are batting stats. We need pitching stats. Now this wasn't one of the questions, but in the last sim, we're still seeing a pretty good mix here. I've got a screenshot I can take a quick peek at real quick. Let me see. Oh yeah, this is more mixed. So in the last sim, that's right. Five of the top seven were 550s and two were 400s. Here you can see there's a 25 in the mix, in addition to a couple of fours. Now, not a huge difference. It could be RNG, but worth noting a 25 was able to pop into that list there. No one wins unless it's 550. 550 got all the war. The strikeout totals are also very nerfed from the last sim. So the last sim, I think the league leader had 200 strikeouts. This league leader has 91. Okay, let's get down to the winning question. The HRA team. The league leader, again, I think the same as the last sim. Not from Team 100, but from Team 250. So if someone had gotten bold and predicted it would have been similar to last sim, we would have had a win right there. But we only lose one contestant here. And we have five moving on to the next one. The league leader in ERA will be from which team? 550. AW saying lots of 250s there. Let's take a look. Yeah, one, two, three, four 250s, and only and four 100s. So even split. The last time around, it was three 250s, and the rest were 100s. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so an even split here in the home runs allowed between the 250s and the 100s. But really, four of the top five home runs allowed were the 250 team. When you think about it, when you say it that way, it's kind of shocking. Okay, what this leads me to start thinking then is when you start falling below average in 1922, it's a lot muddier than it was in 2023. So once you start falling below average, doesn't matter if you're a 250 or 100 team, it's just bad. So there could be something to saying, okay, if my HRA is 40, or if my HRA is 10, I don't care because that's just as it's just as good as 40, or just or 40 is just as bad as 10. Then that means 10 is just as good as 40. Now that's something you could say and say if you have a player who's like 100 control, 100 BABIP, and 30 HRA, that pitcher's just as good maybe as the one who's 100, 150. Like that you can make an argument for, but I still think there's a difference between that and like 100, 180. But I do think in the 1922 sim, once you fall below average, it does seem to be muddier. Okay, so we're going to lose a few more contestants here. All right, so at this point, let me unhide the Twitch IDs of our three finalists. All right, so who do we have left? Smiley Face Jane, AW, and Clay Dog. So no one got the 250 in the first question. You all got the 550 right for the next question. Now, how many pitchers do we have to go down the list before there is the first Team 400 pitcher? It was 30 in 2023. How many will it be this year? All right. Is this still sorted by home runs? Oh, it's on the first screen, so it's less than last time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Wow, we hit an average pitcher much sooner than last time. 16. So closest, 6 away, is AW. Second closest, ooh, 8 away versus 9 away is Clay Dog. By one. By one. And we do specify it is not Price is Right rules, or Smiley Face Jane would have won. But it really came down to one difference in position there. AW taking home the 7 packs, Clay Dog taking home the 3 packs. Let's see how it would have gone if we gone to the tiebreaker number. The next tiebreaker would have been how many pitchers in the top 7 HR leaders will be from Team 100? I think we said it was 4, right? One, two, three, 4. So what would that have been? Oh my goodness. You guys are good. We had 2 4s and a 5. And then the last tiebreaker would have been how many home runs surrendered by the leader? The answer was 39. Closest would have been 49. I think that's AW also. Yep. Wow, you guys are good at this. Smiley Face Jane writing a letter to the Devs to fix the pitching rotation thing and asking for 3 packs as compensation. All right. Well, I mean, there are a couple of things to take away, right? In the modern era, it's very clear. I mean, all eras HRA matters. Let's not lose sight of that. It does matter. In the modern era, actually in both eras, the benefit of going from below average to average is nowhere near as big as the benefit of going from average to above average. Or if you're in like perfect league, right, the cost of starting a sub elite HRA pitcher is probably going to be pretty expensive in terms of home runs allowed. Much more so than in like a 5L, 6L draft where you're going from just above average to below average, right? You can probably, that's probably a less noticeable impact on your results than going from elite to pretty good home runs allowed in perfect team or near perfect draft. Um, I think the implications for PTCS this cycle are you probably don't want to lean into it as hard as some people are, but you can lean into it a little bit. Smileyface Jane says, very selfishly glad that this stream didn't happen until most people have probably already set their rosters. Yeah, well, maybe that's good that AW and I still have rosters to make. We can turn a little bit of this learning into And because frankly, I'll be honest with you, I leaned into it pretty hard in my roster, so I might also have to redo my bronze roster. I pretty much was building rosters as if HRA didn't exist, and I was just rating cards based on other factors. And in hindsight, I should not have done that. AEW's done is accepted silver and wildcard losses. All right, y'all. Well, Clay Dog says really wanted to play a Combi Verlander and his terrible VR HRA. I yanked him immediately. I mean, I was hoping we would get like some huge, groundbreaking nugget of information that would give all of us late night stream viewers a big advantage going into tomorrow morning. I mean, like Clay Dog said, like there are some takeaways that I think like that Verlander is a great example because it's a very specific that VR HRA, right? And that does fit into what we're talking about. Like that is below average. And in that environment, that's a much bigger cost than going from to having that same kind of profile in a lower level tier. So yeah, but it's not as groundbreaking as I had hoped. But I think there were some interesting things we learned tonight, and I hope you all had fun. Um, I continue to be amazed at how good everyone is at guessing these outcomes. I mean, I really like going past the tiebreaker to see just how close everyone was, and it's uncanny how good you guys are at this. There will be 700 home runs per game. All right, I have very little hope that well, I don't know. Maybe someone will be up making rosters. I'm going to look for someone to rate into. Low HR and high PBABIP strategy that a lot of people are going with is going to really on a lot of luck, especially the further the tournament goes. Yeah, I mean the thing is, someone running that strategy might win because it's a small sample size, right? And RNG is going to RNG. And what you know what's going to happen? People are going to say, "Oh, remember in PTCS 6 so and so did that? That's why I'm doing that this cycle." And that's basing something on an N of 1 out of a bunch of other samples that would point the other directions. But what can you do? We can just do what we do in our stream, right? Also, running into teams that go HR heavy or BABIP heavy, I'm sure people will build their offenses very differently. Yeah, that's the other thing we're not factoring in, right? All these leagues, the league we just did, the whole environment is average hitters, both on your team supporting you with runs and on the other team hitting against you. Potentially this goes out the window when we change that, and maybe that's a sim we do later on, right? What if we do this, but we also change the hitters in the completely average league so they all have some home run power, right? Which wins out, them getting nerfed or the 100 team, 100 raw movement team? I don't know. That's something we can find out. All right, let me see who we have here online tonight. No one doing OOTP 25. I'm a little surprised. I thought someone would still be up doing a roster build or something. Oh, this is awesome. I'm going to send you guys. Oh, this is great. Okay, here's where I'm sending you. There is a streamer called Midnight Sumo who, during the sumo off season, just shows videos of Japanese restaurants, like behind the scenes of Japanese restaurants, which is his own way kind of interesting. But I'm gonna send you to bed, AW. But during sumo season, they show the big sumo tournaments in Japan, and they do the play-by-play in English. so that you can follow along and understand. And they announce it as if they're announcing for an audience that doesn't understand sumo. And right now they're replaying one of the big sumo tournaments, even though it's the off season. So I'm going to raid you into there. If you go to bed, totally understand it's super late. I'm going to do some roster builds before I crash. But if you do stick around, it is super fun watching these sumo tournaments, especially with English commentary, because I don't even understand the rules sometimes or the ceremony. And it's cool to see it with someone helping you understand it. I'm going to raid into Midnight Sumo, everybody. Again, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Hope you had fun. Congratulations to our pack winners. And again, thanks to Ezra Denny for raiding in and getting us off to a good start tonight. Good luck with PTCS tomorrow, everybody. Have fun.